Start. Sitting up straight, the spine erect, gaze uplifted behind the closed eyes. Invoking the presence of God and Gurus here with us. Let's pray together, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, Friend, Beloved God, Great Masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, Beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints and sages of all religions. Dear friend, Swami Priya, humbly we bow at thy feet. Dear Master, be with us here today. Guide our understanding. Help us to deepen our understanding of the spiritual journey. We are thy children. Be thou eternally ours. Bring us home. Introduce us to God. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. First, we'll start with a chant. Pausing here for a moment. Gazing up at the point between the eyebrows. Calling out to the Divine Mother. Visualize the beautiful form of the Divine Mother. And surrendering our mind at her feet, at her lotus feet. Beautiful chant that Master translated from Bengali. It was a Bangla chant. Bangla chant in praise of the Kali Ma. helps us to bring our mind into focus, into concentration, and prepare us for meditation. It's a good chant to sing before we get into meditation. Om Shanti, Shanti. So we are in the 29th chapter today. Last Friday we finished the chapter, very deep chapter, which talked about it talked about a continuity in the soul's evolution, right? So it's not like we are just living this one life, that's all that matters, unlike how some other religions or traditions talk about. But then there is a continuity. When we die, we just drop this physical body, but everything remains the same. And it's not like uh, somebody who's evil, the moment he dies, he doesn't become a saint. He still has a lot to work on, which he continues in various incarnations. So that chapter, as we saw, there was a continuity in the progress of the soul. And in this chapter, where he is very beautifully titled it as Gardens, Mundane and Spiritual, he's again saying it's not just that we, our various lifetimes are connected, but in this whole creation, we are connected with each other. With the, here we will be reading it, where Master talks about trees. Everything is made out of God's consciousness. So how can there not be, like, how can we human beings be any different from them? So he talks about the connection between every part of this creation and us. And also, if we were to look at ourselves rather than, it's me, an individual soul who's just randomly going around on this planet. If we look at us, all of us as a whole bunch of souls together in the garden which is being tended by the divine. It's so much more sweeter. And if we remember that we are all connected with each other. So and how the Guru takes care of each one of us in that garden. So let us first listen to Swami Kriyananda reading. We won't be able to finish, I guess, the whole chapter. We will go halfway, and if time permits, then we will read the rest, or we will read the rest of it in the next class, depending on the time permitting.
Chapter 29, Gardens, Mundane and Spiritual. It was, as I recall, sometime during August or September of 1949 that Paramahansa Yogananda acquired his last and most beautiful ashram property, 12 acres shaped by nature into a bowl around a miniature lake. This SRF Lake Shrine, as Master named it, nestles serenely in the arms of a broad curve formed by Sunset Boulevard, as, leaving the town of Pacific Palisades, it makes its final sweep down to the ocean. The property is one of the loveliest I have seen in a lifetime of world travel. Soon after Master obtained this property, he invited the monks out to see it. Walking its grounds, we were wonderstruck at their beauty. Happily, Master predicted, this will be a showcase for the work. Later on, he had us don bathing suits and enter the water with him. I am sending the divine light all through this lake, he said. Afterward, he said to us, this is holy water now. Whoever comes here in future will receive a divine blessing. Even today, nearly 30 years after that event, simply to enter those grounds is to feel their spiritual power. Often I have reflected that people in distant lands go on pilgrimages for blessings like these. Holy shrines in India, Palestine, and elsewhere owe their sanctity, as this one does in modern California, to the blessings of God-known saints. In many of those more ancient shrines, however, people thronging there, eager for mere worldly boons, have diluted the spiritual vibrations. At the Sarth Lake Shrine, the original vibrations are still powerful, as one feels them also in Yogananda's other ashrams. For not only have those places received his blessings, parenthesis, at Mount Washington he once told us, I have meditated on every spot of these grounds, close parenthesis. But since his passing they have been inhabited continuously by sincere devotees. Soon after acquiring the lake shrine, we began the task of preparing it for its public opening 1 year later. An abundance of trees, shrubs, and flowers were brought in and planted on the steep hillsides. Statues of leading figures in the great world religions were placed in picturesque spots about the grounds to emphasize Yogananda's teaching of the basic oneness of all religions. Parenthesis, where do you want the Buddha to sit, we inquired one day. Master was standing nearby directing operations. The Buddha prefers to remain standing, he replied with a quiet smile. End parenthesis. In the early months of preparation, swarms of gnats proved an extreme nuisance. The fascination they demonstrated for our eyes, ears, and nostrils was anything but flattering. Master, I exclaimed in exasperation one day, what an irony! Why must so much beauty be spoiled by these flies? Calmly, Master replied, that is the Lord's way of keeping us ever moving toward him. Happily, the Lord found other ways of accomplishing this objective. The gnats, perhaps with Master's blessings, proved only a temporary pest. One day we were moving a delicate but rather heavy tropical plant into position on the hillside. Our handling of it must have been rough, for Master cried out, "Be careful what you are doing! Can't you feel? It's alive!" His sensitivity to all living things inspired sensitivity from them in return. Not only people and animals, but even plants seemed to respond to his feeling for them. His gardens flourished. Tropical mangoes and bananas grew at Mount Washington, where the climate is not conducive to their survival. Shraddha Mata, Miss Sally, told of watching one day what she called a rose devotee, which kept turning in its vase to face Master as he moved about the room. When he was sitting in his chair, she noted the rose was facing him. Twice, however, when he was called to the door, she noted the rose facing in that direction. Several repetitions of change of directions finally caused this event to surface in her mind. "Sir," she said finally, "you have a new devotee." She indicated the rose which, now that he was seated again, had turned back toward him. He looked at it for a moment, then smiled. Plants, Master explained, have a degree of consciousness. Above all, like every sentient being, they respond to love. Master even felt with certain plants a mysterious personal identity. One day, pointing to an avocado tree that stood by a walkway at Mount Washington, he told us, "Originally I planted 2 trees here, one on either side of the path. We had a certain student living here in those days who was deeply devoted. Referring to him once, I told a few of the others, one of us will leave this work, and one of these trees also will die. This tree stands for me, that one for him. The tree that dies will signal which one of us will leave." Well, his tree died. Soon afterwards he left. He had been very devoted, too, but devotion fled. The delusion that took him away was the desire for money. Master paused momentarily before naming that delusion to give each of us time mentally to fill in the blank with his own karmic obstacles, and thus to concentrate more on what each one had still to work on. A pine tree in the eastern part of the grounds at Mount Washington was dying. In the summer of 1949, Jean helped cut it down. Master grieved over the loss of his arboreal friend. "You will see," he remarked quietly to Fay, "the end of that tree marks the beginning of the end of my own life." Strangely worded though his prophecy was, it was to prove true. Sometimes in his training of us he likened us too to plants. Of a certain monk who had been resisting his spiritual counsel, he exclaimed, "What a job one takes on when he tries to improve people! He has to go into their minds and see what they are thinking. The rose in the vase looks beautiful. One forgets all the care that went into making it so. But if it takes so much care to produce a rose, how much more care is needed in developing a perfect human being." Like a divine gardener, Master labored unceasingly for our spiritual development. It took patience, love, courage, and considerably greater faith in us than most of us had in ourselves. For where we saw only our own egos struggling to shed their imperfections, he saw our souls struggling to reclaim their divine birthright in God. Some of his disciples justified better than others his faith in them, but he extended to all the same vision of their ultimate perfectibility. I soon learned that one of the most important things on the path, especially for the newcomer, is to pay attention to how he selects his companions. For even in a spiritual environment, there may be a few gossips and grumblers, a few devotees who meditate too little, while others can't seem to get it into their minds that it is they themselves who need changing, not the rest of the world. On the other side, in every truly spiritual organization, there are also those who, by their example of selfless service, steadfast cheerfulness, inward focus, and spiritual fervor, inspire in others a constant renewal of dedication. At Mount Washington I found such inspiration in numerous disciples. Even today I recall them with gratitude. I think of Mrs. Merck, later Sister Karuna. Well into her 80s, she worked hours every day in the garden. "Ja," she would say sweetly in her thick Swedish accent, "I love the flowers, they are my children." I think of Mrs. Royston, also elderly. She it was who told me how Master years earlier would run joyously out onto the lecture platform. Her steadfast loyalty and unfailing good spirits epitomized Master's frequent instruction to us, be ever even-minded and cheerful. I think of Mrs. Wright, Dayamata's mother, at once firm and compassionate. Great Mother, Master used to call her. Parenthesis, a little sidelight on that story. Mother told me when her son Richard left here to get married, she defended him. Since then I have never again called her Great Mother. End parenthesis. I think of Mrs. Brown, Mira, whose joyful loyalty to Master was as much a delight as an inspiration. Her joy, by no means callow, was rooted in great inner determination and strength. Mrs. Brown had to contend with prolonged physical suffering, yet she gladly ignored the pain to serve others. To me, as no doubt to many others, she was truly a mother. Miss Sally, Shraddha, was the older nun whom I had upbraided like, quote, a young hothead during that lamentable episode of the committee. As I got to know her better, I found in her a deep, steadfast devotion, one that brooked no nonsense. It reminded me rather of the efficient professional nurse she had once been. But I found her inwardly warm and sympathetic. Her outward severity helped me to keep in mind that the divine quest, though joyful, is at the same time a very serious matter. Miss Darling, Durga, though sometimes a little sharp-tongued, in this respect astrology fans would call her a true Scorpio, her actual sun sign, impressed me with the intensity of her energy and with her complete dedication to everything she did. Master once described to us how, years earlier, she and 2 of the monks had repainted the main building at Mount Washington. The men, he said, though larger and much stronger than she, waved their paint brushes lackadaisically to and fro, as if making graceful peace offerings to the building. But Miss Darling fairly attacked the walls. Tirelessly, her brush flew back and forth, never stopping to think how difficult the job was. That, Master concluded joyously, is the kind of spirit it takes to find God. At 29 Palms, he once told me, the day Miss Darling came here to Mount Washington, I said to her quietly, "You have come." I knew she belonged with us. Years later, Laurie, who seemed unable to relate to any realities but her own, told me with contempt in her voice the only reason Master accepted Durga was because he was in such desperate need of help. Yes, there still remained normal human weaknesses in most of us, including what I might call feminine prejudices. I knew Fay also to express a few of them, for example against Dr. Lewis, who, though he had his own perfectly normal faults, was at the same time deeply devoted to Master. Such aspects of human nature are, I suppose, slow to die, and very difficult to shake off. Swami Sri Yukteswar called them meannesses of the heart, among which he listed another meanness, pride of pedigree, to which I would attribute another frequent monastic failing, pride of seniority. Of the nuns, Fay was the one I got the opportunity to know best, and from whom I also drew much inspiration. I found her always fair-minded and gracious. What inspired me most about her was her utter devotion to God and Guru. Her only desire seemed to be to follow Master's will, though I did find in time that we differed somewhat in our interpretation of Master's will. That aspect of things, however, I must leave to be told later. "Is everything all right?" she would ask me when we met in her office to discuss official matters. Ever ready to help us spiritually if she could, she would set organizational problems resolutely aside, even when they were pressing, if at any time she sensed a need in us for counseling or encouragement. Into every office discussion she would weave subtle threads of insight and guidance. From her I learned that work and meditation belong not in separate compartments from one another, that rather, when the thought of God is held uppermost, they blend together and become one. "I feel that you have been close to Master in past lives," she once told me. Our own relationship was more like that of brother and older sister than of junior monk and superior. This relationship, too, as we both realized, was rooted in past lives. I could never express in words the depth of my gratitude for her constant friendship and guidance. I considered it one of the most precious gifts God had given me in this life. Of the younger nuns I saw very little. Among the monks, few, it turned out, had been in the work as long as the older nuns. "The spiritual path is harder for men," Master conceded, but he added as a consolation, "those who get there become very great." Reverend Michael, Brother Bhaktananda, was one of the monks who inspired me. Deeply humble, he has no ego, Master once said of him, and deeply devoted to God. I almost envied him the unaffected simplicity with which he could sum up the entire spiritual path, stating, "Devotion is the only thing." Joe Carbone, Brother Bimalananda, was another inspiration. and Henry Schaufelberger, Brother Anandamoy too, who came a year after me. Both men combined sweetness with calm insight in a way that I found deeply appealing. Henry, however, to offer a proper balance in my appraisal, tended also to be judgmental. Many others there were besides. I felt it an immeasurable blessing to be living in their midst. Of the disciples, Master told a small group of us in the main office one day, the first in realization is St. Lin. Next comes Mr. Black, and then Sister James J. Lin, to whom of the royal sage, King Janaka. Back to the text. Mr. Black was the leader of the SRF Center in Detroit, Michigan, and later also founded a spiritual retreat upstate in Vanderbilt called Song of the Morning Ranch. Sister was, as I have indicated before, Master's designation for Sister Gyanamata. At 29 Palms, in October 1949, Master said to me, "Those who are with me," I think he meant in tune with me, "I never have any trouble with. Just a glance with the eyes is enough. It is much better when I can teach that way." He added, "They are saints from before, most of them." Another time he told me, "Many of the disciples will find freedom in this life." Looking out the window, he saw Mrs. Royston working in the garden. "Even she," he added with an affectionate smile. In a lighter vein, he continued, "You know, she was even homelier when she first came here." He went on to praise her highly for her many years of selfless service and devotion. To a group of us at 29 Palms, he once said, "Horace is very nearly there. God is satisfied with his devotion." Horace, as the reader may recall, was the spastic devotee who helped James Collar on the occasion of that disastrous yoga lecture in Phoenix. James, who was present on this occasion, tried to reconcile Master's praise of Horace with his brother disciple as he knew him. "Sir," he said, "it must be a very simple kind of devotion, isn't it?" "Ah," Master replied with a beautiful smile, "that is the kind God likes. He does not reveal himself unto the prudent and the wise, but unto babes." About James himself, Master said several times, he will be liberated in this life. Once, recalling James's difficulty with organizational discipline, he added jestingly, "I don't know how, but God says so, so it must be true." The disciple who was the most generous with his anecdotes about Master was Dr. Lewis, the first Kriya yogi in America, and by now highly advanced on the spiritual path. We would sit for hours with Doctor while he regaled us with stories, some of them amusing, some serious, all of them instructive. They helped us to see how the relationship between guru and disciple evolves gradually into one of divine friendship in God. Toward the end of October of that year, Doctor and several other disciples, including Mrs. Lewis and Norman, accompanied Master to San Francisco to meet Jawaharlal Nehru, India's Prime Minister. Doctor returned to Mount Washington with tales of their journey, then went on to share with us other reminiscences of his years of association with Master. Master, Doctor reported, asked me to join him one morning in practicing the energization exercises on the hotel porch in San Francisco, and Doctor chuckled. I nearly died of embarrassment. But what good reason can there be, after all, to feel embarrassed about doing a good thing? My self-consciousness had no worthier basis then the fact that our exercises aren't known to most people. Master decided to cure me of this false notion. As we were exercising, a policeman walked by on his beat. Master, affecting a guilty conscience, stepped hastily behind a pillar, continuing to exercise there. The policeman glanced at us suspiciously. I was praying for a miracle that would dematerialize me on the spot. But Master went right on exercising as though nothing had happened. Minutes later the policeman returned. Again Master ducked behind the pillar. This time the man, his suspicions thoroughly aroused, came over to us. "What's going on here?" he demanded. He probably suspected us of being a pair of crooks planning a crime. "Oh, nothing, officer," Master assured him with an exaggerated air of innocence. "Nothing at all. We're just exercising, see?" To demonstrate his utter sincerity, he repeated a few movements, then smiled as if in hopeful expectation of a reprieve. "Well," muttered the officer, "see that you don't get into trouble." With massive dignity he moved on. By this time I was shaking so hard with suppressed mirth that my embarrassment was completely forgotten. Master and his little group had visited a Chinese restaurant in San Francisco. The, quote, vegetarian meal they'd requested had been served with bits of chicken in it. A lady in the group, a prominent member of another religious organization, had stormed angrily into the kitchen and denounced the staff for this outrage. Master, doctor told us, considered an uncontrolled temper a far worse sin than the relatively minor one of eating chicken. "It's not important enough to make a fuss over," he remarked to the rest of us. Pushing the bits of meat to one side, he calmly ate the rest of his meal. That night, Master and the Lewises had adjoining hotel rooms. Master kept the door open between us, doctor said. I knew he didn't really want us to sleep that night. He himself never sleeps, you know. Not at least in the way you and I do. He is always in superconsciousness. And he wants to break us, too, of too much dependence on subconsciousness. Counterfeit samadhi, he calls it. So I guess he saw here an opportunity for us to spend a few hours in sharing spiritual fellowship and inspiration with him. We don't get many chances for that anymore, now that the work has become worldwide. The problem was, Mrs. Lewis and I were both tired, she especially so. We'd been traveling all day. "We're going to sleep," she announced in a tone of finality. That, as far as she was concerned, was that. Master, however, had other ideas. Mrs. Lewis and I went to bed. Master, apparently submissive, lay down on his bed. I was just getting relaxed, and Mrs. Lewis was beginning to drift peacefully off to sleep, when all at once Master, as though with deep relevance, said, "Subgum." Nothing more. Subgum was the name of one of those Chinese dishes we'd eaten earlier that day. I smiled to myself, but Mrs. Lewis muttered with grim earnestness, "He is not going to make me get up." A few minutes passed. We were just drifting off again when suddenly, in marveling tones, "Subgum duff." Master pronounced the words carefully, like a child playing with unaccustomed sounds. Desperately, Mrs. Lewis whispered, "We're sleeping." She turned for help to the wall. More minutes passed. Then, very slowly, "Super sub duff." The words this time were spoken earnestly, like a child making some important discovery. By this time I was chuckling to myself. But though sleep was beginning to seem rather an impossible dream for both of us, Mrs. Lewis was still hanging on fervently to her resolution. More minutes passed. And then the great discovery. Super submarine subgum duff. Further resistance was impossible. Howling with merriment, we rose from the bed. For the remainder of that night, sleep was forgotten. We talked and laughed with Master. Gradually, the conversation shifted to serious matters. We ended up speaking on spiritual subjects, then meditating. With his blessings, we felt no further need for sleep that night.
It's a sweet story. I mean, imagine to be in company of master and having that experience. I mean, how beautiful it must have been for them. Okay, so here we are. That SRF Lake Shrine was the last of the ashrams that master established before he left the body in Mahasamadhi. So Swamiji is talking about when they were still preparing the place. There in that lake, he says that he asked them all to get into that water. They were all, just swimming around. But it's an important thing, Master said, I'm sending the divine light all through this lake. This is holy water. Whoever comes here in future will receive a divine blessing. This is a blessing. This is a promise of a self-realized master. So if any one of us gets an opportunity to go, remember this story, and definitely, when we go to any of the temples and there's this pond, we always put some water on. Even if you don't get into it, it's a holy water. We always do that, right? In our Hinduism, when we go, we just put some water on our head because it's a holy water. When we go to Ganga or Yamuna, these are holy rivers, right? They are Divine Mother herself. So when people go on pilgrimage to these places, they go take a dip. They go when they go to Prayagraj or in the Sangam and all. They go there because these are holy places. These are places which have been visited by saints. So they have those vibrations. It's not like it's gone, even though it's a flowing river, but that it continues to hold on to that vibration, that purity, right? Even though people, all kinds of people enter it. And Swamiji is saying that what happens, people go there eager for mere worldly boons and have diluted the spiritual vibrations. They have diluted, but it's not gone. People go on pilgrimages for this reason only, for to all these ancient places that Swamiji is mentioning in India. We have so many places that we go to. Palestine, where Jesus, Jerusalem is. So why do people go to these places? Because they still hold the vibrations of those holy, either the avatar or the saints who lived or walked in those places, which still carry that vibration. And so it's very important that when we go on pilgrimages these days, we find that too many people go, but it's become more like a tourism. Whereas there is a way to go for all these things, where when we go to these places, it's important to tune into the vibration of that place, of the river, of the pond where we are going, rather than just chatting and talking to people, and we miss out on the real reason why we are going there. So it's very, very important to remember these things, to hold on to the sanctity of the place, and also to tune into the vibration, to sit down and meditate there. Try to absorb that vibration into us. These are the important points to remember when we go on these spiritual pilgrimages, right? So he says, he says that similarly, like how in India and Palestine and all, there are these places. He says in this one, he's talking about the lake shrine, SRF Lake Shrine. He says this is the one that is similar in modern California. California master once said that it is a Banaras of the West. It has that vibration that the Banaras in India, which is the most ancient, continuously occupied civilizational place that has been around, and it has a very, very holy vibration. So many saints have been there. So, I mean, there's so many temples. It has a very rich spiritual vibration out there, right? So, So he says that this one in modern California, to the blessings of God moon saints, in many of those more ancient shrines, however, that's what he's saying, that people lose out on why they are there. That, and they're kind of, they dilute the spiritual vibration of the place. And he says, but at the SRF Lake Shrine, the original vibrations are still powerful, as one feels them also in Yogananda's other ashrams. Why? Because people come there, because most people who go to these places are meditators. They understand the tuning into the vibrations. That is why these places are able to retain the vibration, right? He says, Master said, sorry. Not only they have those places received his blessings, sorry, but he says, I have meditated on every spot of these grounds. But since his passing, they have been inhabited continuously by sincere devotees. It is also important when Master is talking about a place that he has meditated at various places in his ashram and has and left the vibrations there, right? His vibrations. Similarly, he also spoke about the chants, his chants, where he said, I have chanted these multiple times till I received a divine, uh, reply or a connect there. So when we chant his chants, what happens is it's important again to tune into the vibration of that chant. So Swamiji also talks about how to chant. I mean, so when we are chanting in public, it's different. But when we are chanting for our meditation, he said, chant loudly, and then keep going deeper and deeper. Take that chant inward. Tune into the vibration of that chant till you just mentally chanting throughout. And in fact, you can chant these. Most of our chants are like affirmations. They are like japa. You can keep it going around your mind throughout the day. The more we do that, the more we can tune into Master's vibrations. And Master also said chanting is half the battle. Half the battle, that the battle is of self-realization, the forces that keep us bound versus our effort to be free. And chanting is half of that battle. So these things are very, very important, and important to tune into the vibration of Master whenever we are in these places, we go to a pilgrimage, or when we are chanting, to remember that. So, and here he's talking about when he's saying that when they had all that, they were just preparing the place and gnats had attacked. And these people were saying, this is what an irony. This is such a beautiful place. Why is it being spoiled by the flies? The Master very calmly replied, that is the Lord's way of keeping us ever moving toward him. I mean, if he makes this place a beautiful place, heavenly, we will not be interested in going back, right? So this is the planet is a school to teach us lessons, and so that we are, if not to ourselves, we watch others and we realize that this is not the place I want to be around, and we start hastening our journey back home. So this is a very important lesson to remember, especially when we experience some difficulty in life, that this is not my home. I need to go back. For this very reason, I need to go back. It's always good to remember this. Okay, so here he's also talking about, one day he says that he's talking about the plant that they were moving, and Master said, be careful. Be careful what you're doing. Can't you feel it is alive? Everything in this planet is alive. The plants, the flowers, the more we tune into that, we live our lives as if, only we are important. Only we are, I, me, myself. Especially the human race is becoming very selfish, randomly cutting down trees. I mean, but Master is telling they are alive. Tune into that. Luther Burbank, whom Master dedicated the book Autobiography of a Yogi, called him American Saint. He did experiments on plants, and in one of them, the cacti, he kept speaking to cactus in a very, soothing voice, saying, "Don't worry, I will take care of you. Don't worry, you don't worry, I'll take care of you." And slowly, cactus, which is full of thorns, started losing its thorns. He created the variety of cactus which doesn't have thorns, because it tuned. That is why he's showing that, you talk to plants, you show love, everything in this creation and beyond responds to love, because God is love, the Guru is love. So he's saying that more Luther Burbank spoke to the cacti with all that love, it started trusting him and lost that thorn. And that variety became thornless. After that, even it's coming, its generations never had thorns. He also gifted one of that to Master, and it's still till date is there in Mount Washington, Luther Burbank's cactus. So that is how this world responds to us, right? Everything in this creation, plants especially. He says his sensitivity to all living things inspired sensitivity from them in return. Not only people and animals, but even plants seem to respond to his feelings for them. His gardens flourished. And we always talk about people, right? Some people we say have green hand, where whatever they plant, it just, somebody's audio is on, I think. So this is what they love those plants, and also they love doing what they are. So the plants also respond to them. And here Shraddha Mata is talking about that beautiful rose that keeps turning where Master is. And Master said, she said, when she told him, he says, he looked at it for a moment, then smiled, and he says, plants have a degree of consciousness. Above all, like every sentient being, they respond to love. This is so beautiful. I mean, later on, we are talking, Master is talking about 1920s, 1930s, when nothing was known. Scientifically, nobody even bothered to find out about all this. Later on, much later, they did so many experiments were done on plants. And even in autobiography, he talks about J.C. Bose, who created made one instrument that measured how a plant responds to various stimulations, right? When you cut it, it shivered and it dies, all that vibration. So plants do respond. And later on, many experiments were done where they played, hard rock music. So the kind of music they played, or another one is played classical music, and that plant flourished, and the other shriveled and died. So again, what kind of music we listen to is very important. So they did experiments on water, where one pot of water was said, the experimenter, the scientist would say words of love and all that, and then to the other one a lot of abuses, and then he would set that water, freeze it, and then we would see, and he noticed that the ones the pot in which the water to which he had said loving words had beautiful crystal formations, and the other one was all murky. Very bad, moldy. And we need to understand we are 70% water. So what kind of thoughts we are exposing ourselves to, what kind of people we are exposing ourselves to. These are very important things that Master here is talking about. When he's talking about plants, at the same time, it relates to us also in everything that we are talking about here. Also that, he's talking about those two trees where he said one of them is his. He was so connected to the all the plants in his ashram. He knew exactly. We can't even understand what did he even mean that I planted two trees, one on either side. We had a certain student, he says, I told a few others, That one is his, and this is mine. Let us see. One of us will leave. Who will leave the path? And he said that the tree died, and very soon he left. And here he's saying that the devotion, he was very devoted, but the devotion fled. Maya, delusion can come in any form, anytime. This is delusion that took him away. All of us have something. That is why we are still not self-realized, right? All of us have some or the other delusion that is our weakness, that is tying us down. So for him, it was money. Master paused momentarily before naming that delusion to give each one of us mentally to fill in the blank with his own karmic obstacle, and thus to concentrate more at what each one has to still to work on it. So this can be our takeaway. Introspect and find out what is my delusion. What is it I need to work on? It can be anything, money or fear or that insecurity about things, family, anything. Not to judge, but to identify and say, I think this is mine. And we start slowly to start working on it. That's more important, that thus to concentrate more on what each one of us still has to work on. That is why, not to say, oh my God, I'm so bad, but to just identify what is it that is not allowing me to progress. And here, and he's also talking about that one tree which one guy cut, and he said, end of that tree marks the beginning of the end of my life. This was 1949, and Master took Mahasamadhi in 1952. Very strange, but we are all connected to everything, every creation on this planet. But we are not sensitive enough to realize that. That is what, and he's extremely sensitive about these things. So he's able to identify these things. And that's why he's saying that Master was like a gardener. And he says sometimes in his training of us, he likened us to plants. So, and he says, it takes so much, the rose in the vase looks beautiful. One forgets all the care that went into making it so. It takes a lot. If a garden looks beautiful, the gardener has worked hard at it to keep the weeds away, to make it beautiful, place it at the right place, tend to it, put fertilizer, cut all the dead things, everything that he's taking care of. So he says, but if it takes so much care to produce a rose, how much more care is needed in developing a perfect human being? Master is toiling for us. Right? It's a humongous task. The moment we took our discipleship vow and said, I give my life to you, he has accepted us. And he is not taking it lightly, right? He has started working on us. We have to cooperate. He can only do as much as we allow him to, because God has given us the free will. So we say, no, only this much. Beyond this, I don't want, Master to do anything. I know what I have to do. He will not interfere. But so that is a very important part, that we need to cooperate with him. Then he'll be able to create beautiful, rose, the perfect human being, a perfect plant of who we are, the best of who we are. We will be able to demonstrate that. So he says, like a divine gardener, Master labored unceasingly for our spiritual development, and he is doing for each one of us. It's not just he's talking about the monks who live there. Each one of us, disciples who he has accepted in his spiritual garden, right? It took patience, love, courage, and considerably greater faith in us than most of us had in ourselves. We don't have faith in ourselves, no? We feel, oh, I'm so bad, I'm so like this, I'm like that. We don't think I'm capable of finding God in this lifetime. If Master were to say you can find God in this lifetime, we will have doubts. Oh, really? I don't seem to, no, I'm not like this. I don't even feel I'm saintly enough. But I mean, is that possible? But he has faith in us. He knows who we really are, and that we are just covered ourselves in this, layers of mud. But we are that diamond that is shining in each one of us. We need to have that faith. He has it in us. So he says, for where we saw only our own egos struggling to shed their imperfections, he saw our souls struggling to reclaim their divine birthright in God. See the perspective. The way we approach it, We look at it, oh, I have this problem, this to overcome this. He is only looking at that we are already that. We are those perfect image of God. We just have to let go of those imperfections. There's a difference in the perspective that Swamiji is talking about. The moment we shift our perspective, saying that, oh, I'm that, I just have to let go of this, the path becomes so much more easier, right? Some of his disciples justified better than others his faith in them, but he extended to all the same vision of their ultimate perfectibility. So master has no doubt. So some of them have, like he's talking about Saint Lin, Rajarishi Janakananda, Sister Gyan Mata. They accepted it, and they were working from that perspective. They had shifted their perspective. They also agreed, yeah, I'm that soul who's trying to shed. But the rest of us who haven't, Master is not letting go. He still believes in that ultimate goal that we all are already. He says, I soon learned that one of the most important things on the path, especially for the newcomer, is to pay attention to how he selects his companion. Now, this is, sometimes what happens, we think outside world, I need to be very careful. But now I am in the, company of my Guru Bhais, it's a spiritual, everybody is nice. So we kind of, drop that uh, discrimination somewhere and become too accepting, too. And this is where he says, for even in a spiritual environment, there may be a few gossips and grumblers, a few devotees who meditate too little, while others can't seem to get it into their mind that it is they themselves who need changing. They're grumbling, they're carping. So be careful, because everybody is trying, right? The percentage of people here, the spiritual path, is just that they are trying already. Whereas out there in the world, they don't, most of them are not even caring about that. Here, people are working on themselves, but still, everybody is work in progress. So you still here also, even on the spiritual path, Swamiji is saying you need to be careful who you choose as your companion. If they're the ones he has mentioned, and there are more other things, be careful, stay away from them. And again, if we ourselves are doing any of these things, again, remember, why did I come on this path? If I'm doing the same things I'm doing out there, I don't need this. I don't need to be here. If I want to change, I need to stop this. And for that, I need to be in the company of people who are doing better, who are already trying and seem to be doing better than me. Kind of hang on to them. So here he's talking about various. So not only important of whose company other people we are keeping, but also what kind of company I'm keeping in my mind. To be careful of that also. And then he's talking about various people, other disciples who he saw, like Mrs. Moore. He said, service, the way she used to serve, she worked hours every day. And so beautifully she served without, it's about me, I am serving. The attitude she was showing in her service. And then he's talking about Mrs. Roystone, who he said, steadfast loyalty, unfailing good spirit, and she kept at what Master used to say, be ever even-minded and cheerful under all circumstances. She displayed that. So these are the companies here. He's giving various examples. What we should look forward to, what we need to imbibe from on the spiritual path, and the kind of people we need to keep company with. Then he's talking about Daya Mata's mother, who he said, I was at once firm and compassionate. And he says that Master used to call him Great Mother, till he says, when her son Richard is the one who had gone with Master in 1935 to India and had written down, and he had driven the car for him. Yet he kind of he wanted to get married, and delusion always takes over. And he says that she defended him. Master was trying so hard to make him free, and delusion took over, and the mother supported. He said, after that, I never said great mother to her. Then he's talking about Mrs. Brown. He says joyful loyalty, and she was suffering in her body, but she gladly overlooked that and continued to serve others. And he's talking about Shraddha Mata, he's saying steadfast devotion. Now this is also very important. Here he said steadfast loyalty, then to her she's saying steadfast devotion. is not just, no, I'm devoted or I'm loyal, but being steadfast, never letting that go. And it is so, being very firm about it. At the same time, it's not like, after some time I drop it. So you have to keep at it for a long, long time, as long as, it takes to be free. So steadfastness is very, very important. Loyalty, when he's talking about loyalty, Master said that loyalty is the first law of God. You need to be very loyal. So it's on various levels, macrocosm, microcosm, to guru, to your path, for everything. So, okay. So and devotion, of course, he's talking about that. And then he's talking about Durga Mata, where he says intensity of her energy and with a complete dedication in everything she did. He's talking about how she was painting the walls where others, he says, they were taking care that it didn't hurt the walls, whereas she was going about it um, up and down. So he says that is the kind of spirit it takes to find God. That willpower, willing willpower, right? And about one more monk was there. They had to dig a ditch for some work, and he went at it. He didn't look up or down the whole day. Went at it till there at the end of the day he realized, oh, the ditch was the right distance that he had to go. And when Master saw that, he said that is the way to work on the spiritual path. So you can't like, it's almost 6 months now. How much have I progressed? How much am I meditating? Am I meditating better? Have I had any experiences? No, it's a long haul. Rather than seeing, oh, if I planted a sapling and every day I keep picking it up, it will die. Rather, just go at it. Like how Miss Darling did, and how the other monk I've just mentioned, they were just keeping at it. And then one day, it happens. It is the whatever the guru gives, we will realize that. And and he says that all of us have something or the other. Like he talked about how um, somebody was criticizing somebody, or the Dayamata spoke about Dr. Lewis. All of us are still, not yet completely free. So there will always be some faults that all of us have to work on. So, but we need to be careful, where he's saying that some such aspects of human nature are slow to die and very difficult to shake off. Swami Sri Yukteswar called them meannesses of heart. He says that he mentions 8 meannesses of heart, out of which he says pride of pedigree is one of them, and to which I would attribute another frequent monastic failings. He says pride of seniority. Oh, I came on the path before him, so I'm kind of better or bigger, or I know this path better than him. I know Swamiji better than the other person. That's spiritual pride. And Master will always give us lessons to learn if we allow that to fester in us. Like how Jesus used to say, the last would be the first, or the first would be the last. If you think I am the first because I came earlier, I'm closer to Master, he will give lessons. And the last is the one, what Master said is, it means that the one who lasts till the end, who keeps at it, will be the first, right? And here he's saying that when he's talking about Dayamata, Faye, he says that her utter devotion to God and Gurus, her only desire seemed to be to follow Master's will. Though I did find, again, he says, each one of us, again, based on who we are at this point of our of our spiritual quest, uh, our consciousness, we understand it the way we are, right? From our experiences. That is also like one of the obstacles that Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra talks about, that the disciple understands it based on our own experiences, our own inferences, our own consciousness, wherever we are. So it can be different what I interpret it as, or how the next person does. So Swamiji is right. What she thought was Master's will versus what I thought. It's slightly different, but he says I'll leave that for some other discussion, some other time. So, but she was always ready to help. She was always ready, even if there was something pressing. But if she felt somebody was not doing too well spiritually or needed some advice, she would drop that and talk to that person, give them the counseling, encouragement. From her, he says, I learned that work and meditation belong not in separate compartments, but when the thought of God is held uppermost all the time, they blend together and become one. Isn't that a beautiful thought to have as we go about our everyday life, our jobs, our family life? If we have the thought of God uppermost on our mind, everything blends. Our outer world blends with our inner world. We are in harmony within ourselves, right? Within and without. So here he's saying that she says that I feel you have been close to Master in past lives. And he talks about that, even with her. So Swamiji said that Master often said that he was William the Conqueror in his, one of his lives. And Swamiji was his last son. And Daya Mata, Faye, was his daughter in that life. So that is how that is the connection Swamiji is talking about here. That is why he says I always felt that the elder sister and a younger brother feeling with her. And then he's talking about other monks and all who were sweet and calm inside. So watch out for the company. That's what he's trying to make a point is watch out for the company you keep, even when you are especially when you are on the spiritual path. Because now we are on a journey that is, kind of, we're trying to fast forward our spiritual progress. So no, don't let that go away. And here he's talking about Saint Lin, that's what Raj Rishi Janakananda. And he's talking about Mr. Black and Sister Gyan Mata. These three were his principal devotees. Okay, and he's saying at 39 Palms, Master said to me, those who are with me. And Swamiji says, I think he meant in tune with me. I never have any trouble with, but just a glance with my eyes is enough. It is much better when I teach that way. They are saints from before, most of them. Master doesn't want to scold us or make us go through difficult times. So the more we tune into him, he's able to easily guide us, right? That's what he's saying. Intuitively, we are able to receive his guidance. And he says many of the disciples will find freedom in this life. And he's mentioning various people, where one lady selfless service and devotion to another. Horace, he had physical disabilities, and he's talking about the joke. One of the person who was trying when Swamiji early on his when he had to give lectures, and he asked somebody how to overcome nervousness. This person said, Master had once told me, if you remember that story, that you take a hot water bath, then you are so he said one day I did that, but I stood too long underneath, and I was so there was nothing, no energy left in me. And it was a 5-minute talk I gave. And after that, Horace, in all wobbly, went and asked for money. It was the most hilarious thing, and they all laughed. But Horace, Master says, will find God. And then somebody said, but that's what he would be having is such a simple kind of devotion. Master says, that is the kind God likes. Jesus Christ said, suffer little children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of God. God is not looking for some intellectual way. I mean, I say some flowery language. He's just looking at that purity of love that I have in my heart. That's all he wants. That is all God wants. And Swamiji said that towards the end of Horace's life, he couldn't even walk. He would lie down on the garden and keep picking up weeds. That is a kind of devotion and service to God. Of course, he will find God. That kind of service. Okay. So then, Dr. Lewis telling all that story where Master, very funny way, but he tried to take Dr. Lewis off from his, being embarrassed. I will not do the energization exercises in front of people. And very childlike and beautifully, I mean, to the extent that Dr. Lewis started laughing. It's the attitude. And when they went to the restaurant and they gave chicken and this lady started screaming, Master said, he considered uncontrolled temper a far worse sin than the relatively minor one of eating chicken. He just pushed it. It's not worth it. That's what Master is trying to show. Be careful. if you it's a disease, is what he said. If you have one, somebody is not able to control their temper, and when he that night when they wanted to sleep, because we think, we have to sleep. The master said it is a subconscious relaxation. When you meditate, it's in a super conscious relaxation. He's master said he's always in that state always. And once he said, I tried to sleep, come down in my subconscious mind and sleep. He said, I didn't enjoy it at all. So he calls that subconscious sleep, that we feel that if I don't sleep one night and next day I can't even manage the day. He says it's counterfeit samadhi. So I mean, very funny, hilarious, but very childlike. But he helped them overcome that one obstacle in their journey, right? So I think we finished here. Right? We can do the rest in the next class. So there are a lot of more beautiful stories Dr. Lewis talks about, and he was the first person, his devotee, and he had a more easy going relationship with Master, because Master came to America young, and Dr. Lewis he met, so they have a more easygoing relationship than what other later came, and they always had that reverence for Master. So it was a different relationship that Swami Priyananda also had with Master, but more in the next session. Thank you for joining. We will meet next Friday to finish this chapter.